First of all, thank you for joining us today. My name is Sarah Morris, and I am a public educator, public information officer with Renton Regional Fire Authority. February is Heart Month, and the King County Fire Chiefs Association has invited our media partners to hear survival stories from cardiac arrest patients treated by bystanders and Seattle and King County Medic 1 paramedics. This event will also highlight current cardiac arrest survival rates in King County and the importance of knowing bystander hands-only CPR and downloading the Pulse Point application, which recently became available countywide. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Renton Regional Fire Authority's Deputy Chief of EMS, Chief Chuck DeSmith, to the podium.
Thank you, Sarah. It is indeed an honor to be here. February is Heart Month, and I can think of no better way to celebrate that as to discuss and share all of the partners that are in this program to be able to make King County the special place that it is. And it is a special place. Since I started in 1988, King County has led the way, not only nationally but internationally, when it came to sudden out-of-hospital cardiac care. King County was that place that if you said, if I was going to have a heart attack anywhere, have it in King County. Now, it's not something we want to put on a billboard, but there's a lot of things that go into that. King County is the one place that they took a full circle of care when it came to a cardiac arrest. We knew that it started with people finding somebody that was in trouble, to be able to activate our 911 system and the incredible dispatchers to be able to quickly have the right people to respond. We have our BLS, or basic life support, of the fire department to be there next, to start care, and then our ALS system, our paramedics, to continue that care. Then we get them to the hospital for the full circle. But again, it all starts with our community members. No one at 911, or no one in the fire station knows that a cardiac arrest is ongoing until that community member makes the determination. And that's the most special thing, is that when we do teach CPR, not only do we teach them skills, but we make sure to touch not only their head, but their heart. It takes courage. When so many people want to take a step back when there's an emergency right in front of them, we teach them to have the courage now, before an event happens, to take that step forward. And it starts here. There's a lot of skills to learn in CPR, but the first one is to empower somebody to take that step forward to get involved. CPR has gone through a lot of changes throughout the years, but we have simplified it so that anybody can do it and do it well. We have a tiered response system, like I mentioned, that's very unique throughout the nation. We have a basic life support system that starts the call, and the paramedics come in with their skill to finish it. And it's all about those first minutes. We know that it's about brain health. It's the brain that we're trying to keep alive, and it's oxygen to the brain to keep it alive. Without our community members getting them on their backs, starting compressions, we wouldn't have the oxygen to the brain to be able to save someone. So it goes to those people. We like to teach them how to use an AED, provide them out in the community. We have an incredible app called Pulse Point that is being used on a daily basis to alert those around them. I also want to thank the Medic 1 Foundation. They've been there from the start with our paramedic training. They've moved towards CPR and working with BLS on all things, from teaching CPR to the public to actually helping us with our well-being and mental health. So they've been very strong with that. COVID was very difficult with CPR. I wanted to thank Dr. Ray, Dr. Sayer, Dr. Kudenchuk for giving us the oversight through those years. we did see CPR numbers go down during COVID. And again, highlights the reason that we need our community members to do CPR. We know saves do not happen without them. We are doing much better now. We have strong attendance in CPR classes, and folks are now doing CPR out in the community again. So I'm encouraged to see those numbers climb. I want to thank you for this opportunity to be here. The Renton Regional Fire Department thanks you and welcomes you to our fire station. You can hear that our crews are very busy. But I'd like to turn it back over to Sarah and for the next speaker, and I'll stick around for any other questions. Thank you again, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Chief DeSmith. Next up, we have Jennifer DeBonia, the mother of a 13-year-old Miles DeBonia. Jennifer will share her experience of providing CPR to her son with telephone instructions from a dispatcher prior to the arrival of first responders. Jennifer.
Thank you, Sarah. My name is Jen DeBona, and this is my son, Miles. Miles is 13 years old and a survivor of sudden cardiac arrest. Miles has autism, and the reason that that's important is on the night of his arrest, I thought he was having a seizure. I was sleeping next to him for whatever reason that night. And when he woke up at 2:40 a.m., he shot out of bed and then collapsed. I immediately called 911 and I explained to the dispatcher that I believed he was having a seizure, since autism and epilepsy tend to go hand in hand. When I looked back at Miles, I noticed that he was not responsive at all. Nothing what I had imagined in my mind for a seizure, and he was turning blue. When I told the dispatch that, we immediately decided to go through CPR. As a parent, I'm ashamed to admit that I had not kept up with CPR training. We took it when I was pregnant with Miles, and that was 2 fingers on the chest. And now, as you can tell, he's a very large human, and the same results probably would not have existed. So my husband at this point had heard me and came downstairs, and we were able to put the phone on speakerphone and walk him through CPR. So my husband actually is the one who was able to do the compressions for 10 minutes until the emergency first responders showed up, and then they took over for another 10 minutes. He was shocked twice, and then he came back to us. And so we are very fortunate to talk about what had happened. And even at this point of the night, I still did not understand that Miles had suffered cardiac arrest. It wasn't until he was in the ambulance and we were getting ready to go to Children's Hospital that they had explained to me that he had a cardiac arrest. We have no history. Miles is a very, very, very healthy child, very active, a great eater. There's nothing, there were no symptoms that he had expressed to us, which is something also with autism. Communication is one of our biggest hurdles, and so he wasn't able to communicate to me that if he wasn't feeling well or lightheaded. And the fact that it happened while he was asleep, I think may have also been an unknown factor. I don't know if we could have known, had communication maybe been a little bit more able to happen, but he's here, and they saved his life. And I cannot express enough to everybody how important it is to learn CPR. You don't have to be a certified trainer in this, but just even a YouTube video, something so simple as just taking a handful of moments to just watch what happens and know. I didn't know this until my son had suffered cardiac arrest, that there's no more mouth to mouth. We're not doing that anymore. And when I learned about the compressions, and even in Seattle doing the deep compressions, and just the different ways that we're able to keep people alive and raise those statistics from 10% to 16% in Seattle, and hopefully that will spread. Hopefully everybody will have a chance to have a 16% or higher success rate. So we are very grateful for the fact that we were in Seattle when this happened. We can't move. I'm a Californian and I very much would like to get to sunshine, but we're not moving. We're staying where we are. And we're very appreciative, and we hope everybody takes a moment, not just for Miles, but for your own loved ones. And you never know. I never would have thought my 13-year-old would be a survivor of sudden cardiac arrest. And as one mother who was so desperate in a moment just to bring him back, please learn CPR. You never, ever, ever know when you might need it. But he's here. He's here. He's got a defibrillator. He's our bionic baby now. But we're very appreciative to everyone in Seattle, all of our first responders, Medic One, everybody who helped. You want to say anything?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer and Miles, thank you for sharing your story with us. Next up, we have King County employees, Sherry Badger and Jason Sharon. Sherry will recount the day she suffered a cardiac arrest emergency in the workplace and how her colleague Jason stepped in with bystander CPR to save her life. Sherry and Jason.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sherry Badger, and I am the Public Information Officer for King County Office of Emergency Management. In May, my office had a CPR class. 1 week later, I suffered a cardiac arrest at work. I was feeling lightheaded on and off during the day. I called my husband and told him about it, and he asked if I thought about calling the doctor. And I said, oh, I've got an appointment in 3 weeks, I'll wait. He finally got me to promise to call if it happened again. And the next time it happened, I was on the floor at work, looking up and looking at my coworkers who were around me. I didn't know what happened. I just knew I couldn't move my arms or my legs, but I did recognize the people around me. Started cracking some jokes. I was told some of them weren't very funny, but I was talking, and the last thing I recall was the paramedic who was there. As he was wheeling me out to the ambulance, he looked around at my coworkers and said, "You saved a life today." So I want to introduce Jason, who broke my ribs.
Hi, I'm Jason Sharon. I work with Sherry. So I didn't actually witness the collapse. Sherry, her office is in another part of the building. I was up front in our front office, and a coworker who does share space with her came running in saying, "Help, help, I think Sherry's had a seizure." So I spent 8 years as an EMT working on an ambulance and was standing next to somebody who had just finished EMT school. So we hit the door to run, grabbed the AED, got in there. Did kind of look like she was having a seizure, but put the AED on just to make sure. And it started shouting, "Clear the patient, deliver shock now." Hit the button, straight into CPR. Went at it for 3 or 4 rounds, and then she woke back up. But it was part of a bigger team effort. When I was running for her, we had coworkers calling 911, opening and propping doors for the ambulance to bring a gurney in, running down the end of the driveway to usher them in. It was a long afternoon, but it was, 1 week to the day after we had done a CPR training as staff.
Sherry and Jason, thank you for sharing your story. Finally, we have the Taft family who are available via Zoom to interview. The parents of 13-year-old Nina Taft discuss the successful efforts of providing life-saving treatment for their daughter, and we're actually going to put the microphone up to the speaker.
Thank you for bearing with us here. And Mary and Nina, if you'd like to start.
Great. Yes, we're ready. Thank you, everyone, for having us today. My name is Mary Taft. I'm here with my daughter, Nina Taft. I'm sorry my husband, Tom, can't be with us today, but we're here to tell you about Nina's sudden cardiac arrest that happened last June 4th at Starfire up in Toccoa. As Pat mentioned, we're from Bend, Oregon. Tom and I happened to travel with Nina up there that day. By all other appearances, it was a regular day for all of us. Nina had already had a soccer game that morning. She began her second game at 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon. And I'm kind of going step by step a little bit because I believe there's some important markers that took place that contributed to Nina's successful rescue that day. Nina started the game, and about 25 minutes into the game, her coach noticed that she looked a little lethargic. Coach Allie will forever be angel in our eyes. She's an Army veteran. She has experience in trauma situations. She noticed Nina looked a little slow and her coloring was off, so she subbed her out of the game. Tom and I proceeded to keep kind of conversing on the sidelines, unaware that what was going on is that when Nina got to the sideline, she didn't run, which was not like her. Coach Allie conducted a circulation test on her fingers. She found that the blood did not restore. She told Nina to go sit on the bench, start drinking some Gatorade. She then proceeded to stand behind Nina as Nina sat on the bench, even though she was coaching a very important game, and just kind of monitored her. The next thing that happened was Nina took a couple sips, and then she said she was having trouble hearing people. She said, it sounds like everybody is underwater. The next thing, Nina collapsed, fell off the bench. Coach Allie did not hesitate to yell at the assistant coach, call 911. She then looked at the line rep who happened to be there and said, run to the main building, grab the AED, because she had already sourced it out that morning and knew that it was on site. Thank God she did, because that AED was still one ways away, and it was a relay team of many parents who got it over to Nina. In the meantime, Tom and I are unaware of any of this going on. One minute we see our daughter playing soccer, the next we know she's subbed out. The next thing we hear is player down, it's Nina Taft. My husband took off running in the middle of the game. And I said, Tom, you can't run in the middle of the game. And he said, I'm running through the middle of the game. And then I ran with him. By the time we got to Nina, she was flat on her back. She was turning gray. Her eyes were dilated, and they were rolling in the back of her head. As a mom, I'm looking at her, thinking it's got to be something I can fix. She's choking. She's having an allergic reaction to something. And as I'm sitting there processing it, I'm trying to, Tom sprung into action. And he started CPR on her. The last time that Tom had done CPR was 35 years earlier when he was doing lifeguard training. He didn't get it right away. Coach Allie was telling him and guiding him, correcting it, but he was doing it. Shortly thereafter, the AED arrived, and then the shock was administered. Within minutes then, actually I really don't know the whole time frame to this day, but then the paramedics did show up and surround us and took it from there. So Nina is proof that effective emergency plans, CPR, AEDs, when used correctly, work. So she's here to tell you today how she's feeling, how she's recovering.
Yeah, I'm doing well. I had a successful heart surgery in July, and I was in the hospital too long after, only about 5 days or so, and then I was released, and then from then on I was just continuing to heal, and I'm doing better, still getting back into shape today. I'm playing soccer, basketball, and I'm also doing ski racing. So very busy. And it was very hard to be out of sports for about like 5 months.
Nina was not cleared to return to sports again or even run as a 13-year-old girl until November. So,
And then in November, I had the stress test, and I passed. Just been everything looked good, and so now today I'm just continue to do sports, and I've been doing this program that helps me get back into shape. It's this basically rehab program, and getting back into shape that way, but also doing sports and basketball. As you can imagine, it's just running back and forth, so that's a little bit hard, but still getting back into shape, and yeah.
and so as you can see, it's still emotional to talk about the events of that day. But we, especially Nina, realize the importance of sharing details, anything that helps people learn from our experience, and again, motivates people to learn CPR and everything else associated with emergency plans, because it can make a difference, and it made a difference that day for all of us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mary and Gina.
We thank all of our speakers for being present here today and telling what may be a difficult but very impactful story. We also thank our media partners for being here to capture and hear survival stories, our speakers who were treated by bystanders, and Seattle and King County Medic 1 paramedics. If there are any questions, we will have our speakers stick around to answer any of those questions. But other than that, thank you again for being here. All right.